Good morning, everybody. Thrilled to be with you all. My name is Leah Morris, and I'm a Community Development Officer at the Island Institute, working on blue economy and workforce pathways. Climate resilience trades include any and all trades such as electrical, plumbing, and carpentry that have climate resilience applications, including solar panel installation and maintenance, heat pump installation and maintenance, and green building practices. We also consider kelp and shellfish aquaculture a climate resilience trade because of the benefits to the ocean. Whether it's the promise of a good paying job or from a values-driven perspective, climate resilience trades offer a number of high demand career pathways, which I'm excited to dig into with our panelists today. A quick note before I introduce them that please remember to put your questions in the chat. We'll have a period of time at the end of the facilitated portion of questions. So please remember to post away. So I will start by quickly introducing our panelists. Dan Burgess is the director of the Maine Governor's Energy Office. We have Phil Coupe, co-founder of Revision Energy. Bobby Deetjen, the director of Region 8, Midcoast School of Technology. Essie Martin, undergraduate student at Bates College and associated with the University of Maine Darling Marine Center. And then Ania Wright, the Grassroots Climate Action Organizer for Sierra Club, Maine. So let's dive right in. And I thought I would start by prompting Dan and then Bobby and Esther to talk to us a little bit about what you see as the biggest opportunities in climate resilience trades today. So Dan, if you could take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. Great to be with you all. Want to flag that I'm having some slow internet today and have two children home from school running around. So I know we're all dealing with those similar things, but really great to be with you as a part of this panel. And then, excited to have seen the agenda and all the conversations happening today. It's a great topic and really timely given the opportunities for advancements in workforce as the economy recovers from the pandemic. I mean, I'm excited about about these what I will refer to kind of as the clean energy workforce in kind of the broadest terms. That includes not just kind of, like you said, solar and wind, but efficiency, plumbing, climate infrastructure. The governor set a goal of doubling Maine's clean energy workforce by 2030. And we're, before the pandemic or early on, we were in the kind of 13 to 14,000 job range. And so that's a pretty significant increase. But what excites me is I think there's an opportunity for these jobs to be that the wages are higher across the country. I think it's on when done right and thoughtfully. I think that can happen, and they can lead to longer term careers and not just starting in one place and staying there, but kind of a growth opportunity. If you look nationally, the trends show that the top 2 out of the 3 fastest growing jobs across the country are wind turbine technician and solar installer. And so I think it's really exciting for Maine to be having this conversation and to be on the cusp of that growth, because, it's not just good for, a clean energy future for combating climate change, but it can also be really, really good for the economy. So at a high level, that's what I'm excited about.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Bobby.
I think from a career and technical education standpoint, I'm really excited for our students. I don't think there's ever been a time in our country's history that students have been in a position to really determine where they want to go and when and how. The number of opportunities that are awaiting them are almost scary. And I think when you look at something like wind turbine technology, a student comes to our school and they'll get a basis in something like machine tool or carpentry and really start to understand what all the options are for them when they leave here, and then connect with either a Maine Community College school or Maine System school. And they'll enter that situation with a much clearer mindset of what the expectations are going to be and what the possibilities are. So for students coming out of high school, really the options are endless, and especially around things like green energy. So for me, it's the excitement for our kids.
Great, thanks, Bobby. And then Essie, for some reason I'm not sure if I see you tagged, but I know you're here. So if you had an opportunity to talk about what you see as the biggest opportunities.
Yeah, I'm having some technical difficulties, but I'm here now. What was the question again?
Kind of what you see as the biggest opportunities in the climate resilience trades.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of, my research thus far as a student has been mainly in aquaculture, and it's to sort of be both a climate mitigator and a way to diversify sort of traditional fisheries on the coast of Maine. So both sort of an economic backbone and sort of a climate resilience backbone.
Great, thank you. So then to our next question, then maybe we'll start with Phil and then Ania. Biggest barriers to growth for this area of trade and workforce pathways here in Maine. So Phil, why don't you lead us off?
So I'll preface my comments by saying that I think the clean energy workforce development opportunity is kind of like one of the biggest job creation situations since the New Deal. I mean, it is absolutely massive. We need to expand our electrical grid by about 6 times due to, relative to its current size to meet our clean energy objectives. And so the overall scale and scope of the opportunity is colossal. The obstacles are kind of somewhat evident all around us right now, and that's around policy. There are really big policy battles going on. One of them right now is the New England Clean Energy Connect transmission line down from Canada to get power, hydropower down to Massachusetts. And so that's just one example of the kind of policy fights that are happening across the country, as well as here in northern New England. The great news for Mainers is that Governor Mills came in and worked with the legislature to unleash some of the most pro-clean energy, pro-renewable energy policy on the East Coast. And so today that barrier is not high in Maine, except if you're trying to work on the New England Clean Energy Connect. Outside of that, in just a straight ahead commercial and residential and institutional solar industry where I focus my time and attention, there really are no obstacles except for the lack of licensure amongst electricians. So the clean energy transition has been described as a process called beneficial electrification, whereby you electrify the gasoline in your automobile by switching to an electric car, or you electrify the oil in your heating system by switching to an air source heat pump powered by electricity. And so in the grand ambition to achieve beneficial electrification, we need a lot of licensed electricians to do that work. And currently we have a huge deficit of apprentice, journeyman, and master electricians. And so that's probably the biggest obstacle I see in this industry right now. And that goes for the wind industry as well.
So, Ania, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and just big thanks to the Island Institute for hosting this panel, and to my co-panelists. Just really grateful to be a part of this panel and to learn from all of you as well. I'm definitely not a tech person, and so this has been kind of an interesting panel to brainstorm around. Yeah, I agree with Phil in terms of the policy disputes. I think one I'm thinking of too is at the federal level with the Build Back Better Act that we're trying to push through right now. There's a lot of potential funding there for things like a climate corps, which would be a great workforce development program and things like that. So that's definitely a barrier, and I encourage you all to call your elected representatives if you can. And then I think another large thing that I see in terms of the equity and accessibility side of things is that I think trades in general have been very white and very male led, and I think making sure that new programs are equally accessible to all folks is, maybe a challenge, and I think is something that's very important to address as we move forward to create a diverse and equitable workforce. And I think another piece too is the just transition side of things, transitioning these very energy intensive industries into something more sustainable. And I think there's resistance there and opportunity, but making sure that we, put workers first is another important piece to me.
Great, Ania, thank you for raising the equity issue, which we'll dig into a little bit later in the panel, and we'll have a chance for all of you to weigh in on that very important topic. I just want to take a moment and see if Dan, to give you the space, since representing the governor's energy office, hearing a number of folks talking about policy. So I just wanted to give you the space if there was anything you wanted to add comment-wise.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I could talk for 40 minutes about it, so I'll try to keep my remarks.
I won't let you do that.
But so I think the comments around kind of where we are in the moment in time really strike me from as really apt. I think when the governor came into office, working with the legislature, she set a nation-leading clean energy and climate proposals and goals and actually mandates for emission reduction requirements, heat pump adoption and installation, solar growth, and renewable targets or requirements, just to name a few. Each of those have been in the process of being implemented over the last year. And as Phil mentioned, you're beginning to see the fruits of that. You're seeing new solar installations beginning to be interconnected. The governor last week or 2 weeks ago announced that we set a record, more than doubled the amount of heat pumps that have been installed year over year, thanks to the great work of Efficiency Maine Trust, which Suzanne McDonald is the chair of the board for. You're seeing kind of these policy investments, which are driving towards a cleaner energy future moving forward, that are helping to create those jobs. So from a policy perspective, I think we are headed in a really strong direction, all in the midst of those things I'm talking about are all in the midst of a generational pandemic that we're all living to. So I think it's a really strong sign that clean energy and climate workforce can be part of that tip of the spear when it comes to economic recovery. And I think when looking at what could come federally and policies that are moving forward, I think that's important. I will stop it, but I do want to say that the governor put forward and worked with the legislature on what's called the Maine Jobs and Recovery Plan. So that takes $1 billion that the federal government through the American Recovery Plan, I'm getting my acronyms wrong, but ARPA, through the kind of recovery money that came from the federal government, and really invest it in Maine's economy. And so there's money for not just things like weatherization, increasing weatherization, increasing innovation, but also really to coordinate and grow the workforce. So looking at kind of immediate recovery, long-term economic growth, and infrastructure revitalization. And I think all of those, as administration, we're working to ensure that they have a focus that includes climate and clean energy.
Great, thanks, Dan. Appreciate that. So I thought before we went a little bit farther, we're going to go from sort of the 30,000-foot policy level to ask a question of Bobby and Phil. I would start with them about giving an example of a student or an employee's workforce pathway that you wish people would sort of follow or emulate, that really stands out for you from your experiences. So start with you, Bobby.
Sure. Perfect example of a student that came to us. Well, actually, he doesn't mind me sharing his name. His name was Cade Patton. He was a Camden Hills Regional High School grad, and he was in our machine tool program for 3 years. And when he was looking kind of for the future, he wanted to pick a pathway that he was going to be able to continue to grow in and have options in the end. And he ended up going to Northern Maine Community College and dual majored in wind turbine technology and in machining, to understand that if there was something that went wrong or he was out in the field, he would be able to fix whatever it was. And he graduated in 2 years from Northern Maine Community College as probably one of the most sought after employees in the state of Maine. Started working for a large company in Northern Maine and decided that he wanted to relocate, and had a tremendous number of suitors that wanted to employ him. And now he's working for one of Maine's electrical companies, doing very, very well. But because of the direction that he chose to study, and he didn't necessarily listen to some of the influencers that were around him that were telling him to go into a different direction, he has those options, and he'll have those options going forward. It would not surprise me if he's a foreman of a company by the time he is 30, and he'll be in an upper level management position by the time he is 40 if he chooses to. That's one of the exciting pieces about all of this, is our students are walking into a workforce that they're going to be able to just push and push and push in the future and become leaders before many would even dream of.
Great, thank you, Bobby. So Phil, I'm curious if you have a similar story from as an employer.
Yeah, so Revision Energy's headquarters is located in South Portland, so we're pretty close to Southern Maine Community College and have had a relationship with that great institution for about the past 15 years. And I've been working with Jamie McGee over there. He teaches kids about electrical engineering, and he runs some courses on photovoltaics. And I did 2 presentations so far during the pandemic, and had a number of students who sat through those presentations and felt inspired by the message about Revision Energy being a 100% employee-owned company and a certified B Corp. And, you know, we're trying really hard to make the world a better place. And through those presentations, we've had them apply for jobs. And we just had a recent gentleman, I won't name his name because I don't have his permission yet, but he liked what he heard about the work we were doing. And he just joined us 2 weeks ago as part of our electric vehicle charging infrastructure team. And so he is now already training to go around to various locations throughout the state to help us estimate the cost to install electric vehicle charging infrastructure. And we set him up with one of our electric cars to go do that work. And so he's kind of living the full clean energy transition opportunity right out of the gate. And I quickly wanted to say that since you asked about obstacles, I didn't really have the chance to say what the solution is. And so for people like the students at SMCC and all the community colleges and the trade schools, what we've noticed is this kind of pendulum swing away from licensed electricians and licensed plumbers. And so Revision Energy has started the first of its kind in the nation licensing and training program where we can take a high school or college graduate and put them through the Revision Energy Training Center and turn them into an apprentice or journeyman, and then finally a master electrician, and issue the licensing all through that experience while giving them a full-time job with good benefits. So we've tried to create in-house this training facility where we can help create that workforce of the future to meet the enormous demand for clean energy workers. We currently have more than 40 positions open at Revision Energy, so lots of good job opportunities to be found in this industry.
Wonderful. The in-house program and the momentum that Revision Energy is experiencing is exciting to watch from the outside.
Thank you.
Just wanted to remind folks, if you have questions who are in the audience, feel free to put them in the chat. So I thought that kind of the next question we would talk, and maybe I'd start with Dan and then Ania, about kind of what you see as opportunities for leadership and growth for employees in the sector. And then, you know, obviously I've sort of been targeting our panelists, but if anyone else wants to chime in after Dan and Ania share their thoughts, please do.
Yeah, and so I think that there is just, again, this tremendous opportunity to be as the transition and decarbonization is happening, to be at the forefront of that. And I think it's incumbent on everyone in the field, whether it's government, educational institutions, private sector, to come together and coordinate around, today's is about pathways, right? And so I think there's a lot of conversation about how do you provide those clear pathways to people that so students and people trying to get into the field can understand and can kind of eliminate obstacles to that or see themselves in that. And I think what we're going to be working on is, at least in my office, in coordination with Department of Labor and others that have been mentioned, is that we can set up programs and initiatives, but we need to make sure that the pathways to those careers are successful, and that involves a lot. It can't be just the government doing it by themselves. Can't just be the private sector. It's got to be coordination to make sure that that we're offering those opportunities. And I'm excited about it. You see it happening in some other states, whether it's from a coordinated jobs board to coordinated apprenticeships to coordinated internships, and those kind of begin to get you down those pathways. But it's about them being there. So I'm excited about that.
Great. Thanks, Dan. Ania.
Yeah, I want to make sure that I got the question right. Can you just repeat it quickly?
Yeah, it's kind of what you see as opportunities for leadership and growth for employees in climate resilience trades. So where do you see those?
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, I mean, I think when I think about, what's needed to solve the climate crisis in general, it's so much more than just trades or just organizing. It's like really everything. And so I think, making sure that, like Dan was saying, pathways are open for young people to get involved in all types of different climate jobs is really important. Just, speaking to my own experience, I didn't know that, I was interested in climate change as a career path really until college, because in high school, I really wasn't exposed to climate science or, climate justice or anything like that, and really had to self-select in college to learn that this was a career path for me. And I think going back to the other question about like breaking down barriers earlier in this conversation, I think that's a huge part too. Breaking down some of those cultural barriers to whether it be trade jobs or municipal government jobs, things like that, so that everyone recognizes that is a potential career path for them. I think I'll leave it at that.
Great. And again, I'd like to give any of our other panelists, if you have thoughts that you want to share on that question, and otherwise we can move on. But I don't know if Bobby or Phil or Essie has anything. And I actually wanted to specifically ask Essie about aquaculture. But Bobby, were you about to unmute?
Yeah, I just want to come back to both Dan and Ania's point about pathways and really valuing those pathways and honoring them. We deal with that a lot with our students here. And one of the challenges that many of them encounter, kind of feeling like the traditional trades and now moving into this sector, that pathway isn't necessarily valued, and that they're not seen as something that is desirable for everyone. And that is one of the things that we're going to have to try to figure out as a state and really as a country on actually how to take on that issue and improve in that area.
Great, thank you.
Can I just say, I just want to add to that, if it's okay. I think that's a really good point. The overall policy agenda, the transition to decarbonization and clean energy does not happen without this workforce. And we need to make sure that, like Bobby's saying, or I think he's saying, is that people can see themselves as a part of that and lift that up to being kind of just seen as critical and vital to this work. And so I'd second that.
Great. So Essie, I just wanted to give you a chance with your particular focus as an undergraduate student, thinking about aquaculture as a career path, to answer that question as well. So kind of what do you see as opportunities for leadership and growth within the aquaculture sector, excuse me.
Yeah, I think both to this question and the question you asked earlier about sort of problems with the industry. I think with aquaculture, one thing that we see happening a lot is it's really hard to enter the industry. it's a little bit easier for lobstermen who already have boats, but there's a lot of expenses involved. It's hard to know where to get started. It's hard to know how to go through the lease process. And so I think a lot of the career paths moving forward could be sort of doing research and sort of clarifying those pathways and making it easier for new entrants. And that also goes to sort of diversifying the people who take part in aquaculture, be it women or people of color, and sort of thinking about how to do that moving forward, I think is an important path for folks who may not necessarily want to start a farm, but who want to take part in this industry and improve it.
That's a perfect segue, Essie, to my next question, which I really wanted to open to the whole floor, because we've heard themes of it in our discussion so far about what are the needs and sort of opportunities to address equity issues and access as a career workforce pathway. So I don't know if anybody is chomping at the bit, but I really wanted to give each of our panelists the opportunity to address that. Phil, you put your hand up first, so I'll let you go, but I would love to have everybody address this question because it's so critically important.
Yeah, thank you, Leah. So in response to the civil unrest and turmoil sparked by the George Floyd murder, Revision Energy started its Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion initiative. So we call it our JEDI team. And it's grown really quickly. I think we have about 50 co-owners who currently participate in various committees on that team. And so we're using that vehicle to go out into the communities where we live and work to try and do as much JEDI good as we can in the world, but also to recruit and ideally retain people of color and others who aren't traditional workers in this space. We've also worked with a local outfit in Greater Portland called INT Work, and they've brought some new Mainers over as job candidates for us, and we've hired a couple of those people thus far. We're pretty engaged in the Lewiston Auburn community, where we're trying to intersect with new Mainers. So we're trying to take a proactive approach, but we would also welcome folks to visit our careers page on our website to see all the various openings that we have. And I just heard an update this morning from one of our HR people that we hired 60 new people so far in 2021, and 66% of those are either women or minorities. So we feel like we're making some modest but meaningful progress.
Great, thank you, Phil. Bobby, do you want to? Oh.
No, I'm all set for this one.
Okay. Ania, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, this is a complicated question, right? Because it's about like, how do we change the systems that got us here in the first place? I think getting really big and like meta here, when we look at like climate change as a whole, we can tie back a lot of the root causes to things like racism and sexism and colonialism and systems of exponential growth. And so I think the question is like, how do you fix that? And I think that's an all levels question. It's how does a group like Phil, like you were talking about revision, like how does an industry address the issues within its own community? How do you address it outside of the community? How do you educate the public? And so I think this is a really, I think, pertinent question as we kind of zoom out on climate change as a whole and try and figure out how to address it. And I definitely don't have all the answers. I think, simple things like living wages and having equity, inclusion, and justice programs within workforces, and continuing in our own lives to push for social and racial justice issues is all a good first step. But really, I mean, I don't know, Dan talked about how he could talk about policy for 40 minutes. I could talk about this for 40 minutes or more. So yeah.
Great. Thank you for your thoughtful comments. Dan, do you have anything to add about sort of the equity issues and the climate trades?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question, and I think I just would add that we're working through an equity working group to look at equity issues across the climate action plan that we put forward, and so touches a lot of what Phil and Ania have connected on. But I think a lot of it is really about understanding and taking that an approach that seeks to deal with the issues, understanding the kind of impacts and data and needs. And if you think about kind of equity, it's even from like an energy programs perspective, that obviously impact trades. It's it's rural, it's location of facilities, it's I think a number of things. And so I think it's an ongoing thing an ongoing issue that we need to continue to grapple with. And exciting to hear, Phil, of your progress. That's great.
Great. And Essie, I just wanted to give you a chance. Obviously, you sort of segued us into this question itself, but if you had anything further you wanted to add in your comments about kind of equity and access, particularly within aquaculture.
Yeah, I mean, I think one really hopeful thing that we're seeing in aquaculture is because it is a relatively new industry, there aren't those sort of historical trends of like people who tend to be aquaculturists. And so there's been sort of areas for new entrants that you don't normally see in other like pre-existing industries. However, we're able to fall into these trends much more easily than we would like. And so making sort of that push to keep aquaculture accessible and making it, like I said before, sort of making the pathways super clear so that anybody who's interested can find ways to join.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, and I should have mentioned this during my remarks. A new report just came out about energy efficiency jobs across the country and has some information about Maine, and the 13,000 to 14,000 energy jobs or clean energy jobs in Maine, 8,000 to 9,000 of those are in the energy efficiency sector. And if you drill down into that, 95% or so of those are white, and 24%, according to this report, are only 24% are female. And so I think when I talk about kind of having the data and information needed to, begin to look at the issue, it's those types of things that are helpful, that kind of benchmarking to understand where we need to go. But wanted to share some of the latest numbers that just came out this week.
Thank you for flagging that, Dan. Appreciate it. Bobby.
Sorry, I got caught reading Mary Ellen's question that to me just kind of helps with this. And that really is kind of the focus on K-12 education and kind of tears down some of those historical barriers that we deal with every day in the traditional trades, and educating students when they're 5 years old about what a possible green energy career will look like and who actually is involved in that really will go a long way, especially if they're seeing it K-12, not just in one grade where you might do a career exploration project. This is really something that, looking at our whole education system, we're going to have to kind of take on. And I think that's the only way that we're going to move the needle.
Great. Thank you, Bobby. And actually, while you're unmuted, I was going to shift gears and give you an opportunity to maybe enlighten the audience a little bit here today about kind of what some of the barriers are in terms of recruitment for you and your role.
Sure. So again, it's kind of that cultural shift. And Phil talked a little bit about the pendulum shifting. And when we're looking at a traditional pathway, I grew up the son of two teachers. I was born going to college. It wasn't a choice. That was told, you are going on a 4-year path. And that's great. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, through that kind of mindset, we've devalued the majority of the trades that exist today. And we're starting to see kind of what happens when you do that. And we look at Phil's organization with, did you say 60 open jobs still or 40? We look at 60 at revision. You might have Sundog, they might have 20 open positions, and you go to every single industry and there's a huge loss coming in probably 5 to 10 years. And we're just seeing the first wave, and there's a tidal wave coming. And if we don't do something soon, we're going to be in really big trouble. We're starting to see it now. And I think with students here, they're the first generation that they haven't had the massive pressure to go either a 4-year track, 2-year track certificate. It's been left up to them. And I'm hoping that as the whole society, that we can continue that trend and honor and value every single type of post-secondary education, no matter what it is. And I think Wendy Alt at Melmac has really started to really push things in the right direction when they redefined what college was. And that was any post-secondary training that you received. And for our group in CTE, the more people that we have pushing that trend, the better. And I think our students are going to really see the value in the end.
Great, thank you, Bobby. Anybody you want to build on Bobby's comments at all? Okay, so we can, I think what we might do, I had kind of one other big picture question I wanted to ask, but I'd like to maybe turn for a few minutes to some of our audience questions. I see one question that's come in. It says, what does your outreach look like for these jobs, apprenticeships, and how are you engaging non-traditional students, new Mainers, and the underemployed? So maybe Phil, we could start with you. I mean, I think that's building a little bit on what Bobby was addressing, but maybe from an employer perspective.
Leah, can you repeat the question? I'm not sure I get the nuance there.
Yeah, so the audience member asked, outreach, what does your outreach look like for jobs or apprenticeships, and how are you engaging non-traditional students or new Mainers or the underemployed at Revision Energy?
I think that either trying to get ourselves invited to speak at schools or welcoming schools to invite us to come speak is kind of our best outreach technique. It's interesting. So during the LePage administration, there were 8 years where kind of leadership was trying to drown wind and solar in the bathtub. And so a lot of the initiatives at the community colleges in the state kind of died on the vine. For example, Southern Maine Community College, prior to LePage coming in, had built an entire sustainable energy training facility of their own. And then LePage got elected and the thing went dormant for nearly a decade because the policy wasn't there to encourage kids to come. And now that we have encouraging policy in the state, we're trying to kind of revive that dormancy that's not only at SMCC, but throughout many of the state's community colleges. And so Revision Energy would love to be a regular presenter at our community college system, as well as our public and private schools. And so we knock on a lot of doors to try to introduce ourselves, but we also welcome the school communities to reach out to us. And I've posted my email address in the chat. I'm doing a presentation to the school superintendents next week to try to propagate that outreach. And so, yeah, we're open to other ideas about how to be better at it.
Phil, and I guess I have a brief follow-up question on that. Sort of when you go to do visits at schools, entities, do you actually take some of your, is it you kind of as a VP in the company, or do you tend to take so that students can sort of see themselves in a potential pathway or an employee? I'm kind of curious how you model that when you go.
Well, unfortunately, for almost 2 years, it's been exclusively Zoom. So, yes, primarily myself, because I have more freedom in my schedule to go do it. But we often try to get other people, like the actual electricians or other installers. We like to push them in front of the kids as well, so they can see the people actually turning the wrenches out there in the world. Yep. Yeah, it's a mix.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then it looks like we've got another question. I think it would help K through 12 educators to have the knowledge of the green energy industry so they can talk the talk and get kids excited about it. Do industry, I gotta scroll down here, sorry. Do industry leaders have ideas about how to connect with K through 12 students? And obviously that you're our industry representative, Phil, but I would encourage anybody to address the question if you have thoughts or comments.
I'll just lob out there that getting clean energy systems at the schools themselves is one of the best ways to empower students and faculty and staff. And so, you know, in a very self-interested way, Guest Revision Energy is trying to do that at as many schools as we can. But the state currently does not have a specific school clean energy target that I'm aware of. We certainly have the statewide umbrellas of where we're trying to get to 80% by 2030 and 100% clean energy by 2050. It might be nice to think about asking Pender Macon to create some type of school-focused initiative around having clean energy on site and at minimum some curriculum focus.
That sounds like an exciting thing to add to a task list from today. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I think that, you know, some legislation passed requiring some look at clean energy on schools as moving forward. And I think Efficiency Maine is doing some work in that space. But generally, I agree that in order to be it, you kind of have to see it happening. And I think with the policies in place, we're beginning to see these installations come on, and I think they begin to, you know, perk the interest of young people. You know, my own family and included that are starting to ask questions, not just about what all the ads they're seeing on TV are these days, but about, you know, the solar field that they're seeing pop up, or what is offshore wind. And so I think it's about seeing it, sparking that creativity, and then I think having initiatives that allow, you know, students that are interested to see, you know, have that curriculum. And so I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel, which is a good thing. There's really good examples in other states and things that I think we can work on through the Jobs and Recovery Plan and other areas too. So it's a great question and one we can do more work on.
Wonderful. So I thought that we could now turn to going back to, we sort of zoomed in and out throughout our conversation today, but to hear a little bit from each of you about kind of your visions, you know, of climate resilience trades. If you could, you know, have it all fall out of the sky exactly how you would like tomorrow, in an ideal world where everything moved quickly. I just love to hear your thoughts. So maybe Bobby, if you're willing to go first, you know, in an ideal world, what would it look like for you?
Yeah, I just kind of coming back to the education piece. I mean, that's what I'm representing, is to kind of have the value that's there, and students have the choice to go in whichever direction that they want to, and can see the clear pathways that are defined for them into any of these fields of study.
Great. Ania, maybe I'll work my way down the Zoom line here.
Yeah, I think I see, you know, a world where all different job opportunities are accessible and well paid, and you know, create the opportunity for you know, a living wage and a healthy life. And yeah, I think the accessibility piece is the biggest for me.
Yeah, I applaud that. Yes, Phil.
So when I was a younger person, you know, in say grade school, and people are thinking about future careers, right? And, oh, I want to be a firefighter or a policeman or a paramedic, or I don't know, a titan of industry. It would be great to start feeding kids the notion that a clean energy career is highly desirable, and that there are so many layers of goodness around it. You can make a good living, you can make a positive difference in the world, you can I don't know, live a better life through purpose and direction. And I think kids need to be led in that direction. And I'm not sure that we currently have the best practices or tools in place to lead kids toward those outcomes and towards those perceptions.
Dan.
I think about the opportunity to, it's incredibly exciting to think that we are moving in a more sustainable, clean energy future, and that it doesn't come at the expense of our state's economy, but actually can be the lead of that, and the opportunity that comes with that is what excites me. And as I think about where we're going, it's that type of opportunity that gets me excited. I mean, when we're building, whether it's solar installations or installing heat pumps, that is not just happening in one small part of the state or one large part of the state. That is happening in every zip code. Every county has these opportunities moving forward. And so it's not a north versus south, east versus west. It is literally happening everywhere and needs to happen everywhere. And I think with that comes really incredible opportunity. We haven't talked about as much, and I think it's okay, but the innovation that's happening in this space as well. It's not just solar and wind, it's electric vehicles and the transformation that's going to come there. It's floating offshore wind and a huge opportunity for a new offshore wind industry. It's energy storage. It is things that we haven't even thought of, talking about aquaculture and kelp, and all of these solutions create economic opportunities, and the opportunity is what excites me and has me thinking about the future.
Wonderful. And Essie, I want to give you a chance, sort of, if an ideal climate resilience future fell out of the sky for you tomorrow, what would it look like? And then I've got a few more questions from our guests panel.
Yeah, I think just making aquaculture accessible to anybody who wants to enter the industry, and sort of from that, making it a more making the food system more prevalent, because it is such a sustainable one. And if we can do it in a way that makes that food accessible to people of all classes, because right now a lot of the food that we make from aquaculture is sort of on the more expensive end, and figuring out how to sort of refine the technologies and techniques and getting lots of people doing it to make it more accessible to everyone, both farmers and people eating food. That would be ideal for me.
Great, thank you for all of you for sharing sort of big picture visions. And I hope many pieces of it come to fruition soon. So we've got a question that came in specifically for Ania and Essie. What do you see as opportunities for schools to engage more about aquaculture and or organizing as other climate related jobs? So we'll let the two of you tackle that a little bit more. Ania, do you want to go?
Sure, yeah, and I'm grateful for this question too, just to highlight that climate jobs are all sorts of different jobs. Doesn't necessarily live in the trades world exclusively. I'm a climate organizer myself and work with different communities all over the state on climate projects. Oh, and thanks, Phil, for the Sierra Club shout out. Those are the teams that I help work with. But I think a lot of it boils down to teacher training and providing opportunities for educators to feel empowered to teach about these things. Something I'm really excited about for this next legislative session is a bill put forward by Representative Lydia Bloom to create some funding for teacher training around climate education, and really hoping, knock on wood, that it makes it through the Legislative Council into the session. But I think that's a really critical piece is, teachers have their plates full. A lot of them, did not get climate change education in their own, high school or even college educations. And so I think there's a big need and gap there to provide training that is accessible to teachers to be able to to empower the next generation to enter the climate workforce. And Esther, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different levels that we could tackle with aquaculture. I think sort of the first one is like the K through 12, just getting students hands on, oysters and mussels and kelp and getting them excited about growing in the sea, because it is really exciting that we can do that. And then I think also sort of providing some sort of trade school pathways for students who don't want to go to the traditional four-year college, to sort of have more of a climate focus within that. And then more at sort of the four-year college, which is where I'm at Bates College right now, having more professors center classes around aquaculture, because there's not a lot of that right now. I think UMaine is doing a really good job because they have the Darling Marine Center, but very few of my classmates at Bates have even heard of aquaculture. And so sort of getting that more into the common curriculum, because it is so relevant to a lot of the things that we're learning, be it policy, science, environmental studies, that sort of deal.
Great, thank you, Essie. And I see there's a bit of a chat building that somebody asked about sort of climate resilience trades and being over the age of 65. So maybe that kind of, we've talked a lot about electricians and installers, but sort of tip to tail, are there opportunities to work in other portions of the sector that may be more accessible for somebody who is over the age of 65? So I don't know, Phil, you want to, if people are missing the chat, to kind of expand on the conversation you've been having there.
There are plenty of jobs in clean energy that don't require a strong back. And so, sales, marketing, admin, and so everyone's welcome to check out Revision Energy's career pages. And then there are lots of other renewable energy industry job places, like, Indeed, for example, tends to post a lot of jobs, but I don't have a specific one for a specific age group. I think I'd get in a lot of trouble if I start talking like that. So I'll leave it at that.
It's worth kind of noting, underscoring that point, Phil, that again, the exciting part about the space is that it's all aspects of the experience that are needed. Like you said, sales, marketing, to electricians, to, administration. And so I think that's exciting. I will say, what the question wasn't about volunteer, but I want to underscore the community engagement piece too. The federal government's going to do a lot. The state, we're working hard, but the community by community kind of sustainable energy or climate action work is really impactful too. And so we just encourage folks to consider getting engaged locally. And obviously the Island Institute is doing great work in that space, but the local work is really impactful.
I would add that there's a lot of behind the scenes work for aquaculture too. There's a lot of supply chain needs, and one of the big ones, which could be kind of fun for folks to tackle, is trying to find ways to make some of the things that we grow in aquaculture more intriguing to people. So like, not a lot of people want to eat seaweed, but if we can find ways to sort of advertise recipes, come up with new ways to utilize seaweed, that could be a very cool and sort of fun way for folks to get involved, so that, again, you don't need a strong back for.
Great, thank you, Essie. So maybe we have a few minutes left. I thought to give maybe Dan and Ania a little bit of time to talk about Maine's climate action plan and sort of the workforce pathway piece, workforce development. And then I think I saw in Suzanne's note even that there is a section specifically on engagement with schools and communities. But if you really just wanted to kind of expand while you have this audience on the Maine's climate action plan and workforce pathways and climate resilience trades.
Sure, I will do the setup, and then Ania, I'll let you fill in the gaps that I missed. So which will be a lot. But the climate action plan stems from legislation signed in 2019 to set requirements for Maine's emission reductions, proposed by the governor and passed by the legislature. And so the Climate Council was a group formed to create a climate action plan. So it began meeting in October of 2019. Through the pandemic, hundreds of people came together, thousands of comments received and input received to come up with a climate action plan that was released December 1st of 2020. So there, everything from energy, transportation, buildings, working lands, science, all of these working groups came together, put forward recommendations almost a year ago, and now we're working on implementing those recommendations. So it's things like increase weatherization in heat pumps, advance more on offshore wind or small scale solar, create these new task forces to look at equity and others. And a big piece of that is the clean energy workforce. And we're, with this new Jobs and Recovery Act, working to implement that. But it is an exciting, very inclusive, science-based, data-based plan that got experts from across the state together to look at where we need to go, and will be updated every 4 years.
Thanks, Dan. Ania, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I think, Dan, you summarized it well. I think the one thing that I'll add is that there is an equity subcommittee of the Maine Climate Council that just came out with its draft suggestions, and we are taking public comment right now. And so I'm just going to put in the chat a link to provide public comment if you're interested in getting more engaged.
Wonderful, thank you. So I wanted to take a moment. I don't know if any of our panelists have any closing comments as we the Island Institute gears up to really, as an organization, dig into our workforce pathways work, but any sort of parting words or thoughts as we begin to develop partnerships and conversations from today. So Bobby, I don't know if you have any closing comments or things you want to leave the audience with today.
Just thank you for the opportunity to be part of the panel. And really, I think it's just creating the partnerships between both industry and everyone in the room at the same time, instead of working in isolation and pointing fingers. So again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for being here, Bobby, and we look forward to more conversations. Ania, do you have any closing thoughts or comments you'd like to share?
Yeah, similar to Bobby, just really grateful for this opportunity and grateful to share this space with you all and to have such a great conversation about such a critical part of addressing climate change in the state of Maine. This is just such an important piece of meeting our climate goals within the state and also just building a more resilient state in general. So this has been a great and exciting conversation for me.
Thank you for being here. Phil.
Thank you, Leah. So a touch of bad news and then some good news. So the bad news is that every year Mainers export $6 billion from the local economy to import fossil fuels from away, because we have no fossil fuels under our soil. Kind of salt in that wound is that we have the highest per capita carbon pollution in New England, despite our pristine environmental reputation. So we have a humongous economic development opportunity in the clean energy industry, because every time we build a solar project or a wind turbine or a heat pump, we're keeping our energy dollars right here at home in the local economy, supporting good paying jobs and opportunities for our younger and older people to stay here and do good work. So we have a $6 billion economic development opportunity in clean energy. And I hope everyone will spread the word about what a great time it is for people to think about a career in this space.
Wonderful. I applaud that very much so. Essie, you have any closing thoughts or comments from your perspective?
Yeah, I just want to reflect again. Thank you so much. This has been really wonderful, and just say what other people have said in terms of getting involved. Be that through voting, installing a heat pump in your house, or seeing what you can do for just sort of your local industries, including aquaculture.
Thanks. And Dan, closing thoughts or comments?
Phil, I thought yours was going to be please apply and spread the word about our 40 job openings. That's pretty incredible and testament to the opportunity that's there. So I will say part of that. Thanks for the opportunity. It's an exciting time. And if you have any interest in engaging, you're here listening, so I'm sure you do. But if you want to talk more about the opportunity or barriers, we have an open door. So looking forward to keeping in touch. Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to take a moment to thank Bobby, Ania, Phil, Dan, and Essie today for being part of what we hope is going to be an ongoing conversation. And the Island Institute is really excited to be building partnerships and continuing this work and conversation with all the good work that you are doing. And I think with that, I will say thank you, panelists. And then there'll be a break between 12:30 and 1 with music playing. And the next session on the Creative Economy panel will start at 1 o'clock on this same Zoom link. And then we close for the day at 2:30. So thank you again for our panelists, and take good care.